All right, folks, talk about a different location. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. This is In the Image Clothing Company. Today is the 30th of December, 2024. And at In the Image Clothing Company, we are so much more than just a clothing company. We discuss the human body and just allow it to work through everything that we do in our lives. But mostly we talk about clothing because it's the only thing that's placed physically on our bodies at all times, and so it has the highest potential to alter our bodies. Now, we understand where clothing needs to sit just to allow the human body's skeletal system to function. It's not about the fat content or the muscle mass. The human body is about the skeletal system and its natural positioning. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of a preface of what this video will be, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the intro, and then we'll get into this. I'm going to talk about how driving a vehicle affects body mechanics, and really what the seatbelt is doing to our clothing, and the stretch or the wear that it's putting into our clothing that goes through the rest of our lives, what sliding into the vehicle does, the position of the pedals, the height of the steering wheel. I'm going to get into those kind of things and just the body's function within driving a vehicle and how it can create a lot of unnatural patternings that travel through the rest of our lives. So clothing for everybody needs to sit. Doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman or you're older or younger, tall, short, fat, or skinny. Clothing needs to sit where the pants are entirely above your hips to just allow your hips to open. Especially sitting in a vehicle like this, that's going to really impact you. If your pants are on your hips, they're just closed off, and that travels through the rest of your body, from your hips being basically your core, which is the center of your body. So, yes, slightly higher in the front than in the rear. Above the hips, higher in the front slightly than the rear. That's how we keep our core activated. The core should always be naturally activated. It always would be naturally activated unless it was altered by positions we're placing our body into that are unnatural or things we're placing onto our bodies. So shirts or tops, the seams on the tops need to be behind that little bone that is the other end of the collarbone, just to allow the shoulders to be in their neutral position, which allows the wrist to be neutral and allows the rest of the body from the shoulders out to be neutral. And then ideally just right at the very edges for the edge seams of our shoulders, seams of the shoulders. So two prerequisites to allow the body to have a chance, besides allowing clothing to sit where it needs to. The shoes that we wear need to be laced with the technique that In the Image Clothing Company uses. That technique just allows your foot to be unaltered, pairing the technique with tying your shoes evenly. So the right shoe you tie over toward the inside, and the left shoe you tie over toward the inside. Even foundation traveling up the entire body. That's huge in every aspect of life, but especially doing something like driving a vehicle, and I'll get into that. So, second prerequisite is to remove all tags from clothing. Anywhere a tag is placed inside of clothing, it's causing an unnatural gap, really changing the way that the body's skeletal system sits together and the musculature activates, especially having that slippery synthetic material being placed against your body. Your body will try to reject it, whether you are intellectually aware of it or not. So, all right, let's get into this. I actually have talked about this before, how driving affects body mechanics, but I wanted to do a video actually sitting in a vehicle so you can see what I'm talking about. Now, we need to keep our core activated. The first thing I'm going to mention is the seatbelt. And I will say it's very important to wear a seatbelt. I have been in some pretty major accidents, and the seatbelt is something that I know did a ton because of how I felt on my hip flexors and my shoulder afterward. And if that hadn't have been the location that had held me in place, I would have hit something else in the car probably, or just gone out of the car potentially. So when you get the seatbelt and you bring it over your lap, I want to be very clear about this. I'm not telling you in any way to alter what the seatbelt's designed to do. I don't want any kind of legal thing, someone saying, yeah, Evan Strong, you told me to wear my seatbelt in a way that it's not designed to work. That is incorrect. But when you take your seatbelt and you put it over you, just pull it out and just put it over you, what it'll do, I'll put it on so that you can see, when the tension gets pulled, it actually takes your hips and twists them to the right. Now, well, to the side that it's clipped in on. I'm in the United States of America. This is a left-hand drive vehicle. So, yes, it will twist your hips to the right. Now, what I do is, and this is not altering, let me be so absolutely clear, this is not altering the way that the seatbelt works. Okay, I take the seatbelt and I take it and I do one rotation halfway toward myself. So instead of putting it into where it's like this, I actually, right, pull it straight out, one half rotation toward myself, and put it in so it's like kind of angled the opposite way that you would normally do it. Okay, so I pull it out, one half rotation, flip it upside down, and then I put it in. And now, see this, there's no twisting across your body. It's still gonna sit completely flat across you on your waist and completely flat across you all the way up to the top. There will be a rotation up here past where your body is, and a rotation here on the left side past where your body is. But where it's on you, it's still entirely sitting flat. This is actually better because now when you pull on this, it pulls pretty well just straight against you, equally on the front of your hip bones. And same with your chest here. It just pulls you straight back into the seat rather than twisting your entire pelvis with the tension that gets pulled on it. So there's a lot of reasons why I do that. Like I said, it actually is safer. It is, because it's pulling you straight. If you do it the way that it's just going to pull straight out and place it into the thing, what's going to actually happen if you do get in an impact where it tugs on you pretty good, it's going to wrench on your hips. So it's actually potentially quite damaging the way that they're designed to work, which is strange. But what you're doing is just allowing it to, like I'm saying, pull straight and even against you. Now, I do that for a few reasons. First of all, that one that I discussed, I got in a pretty major accident, and as far as I'm aware, I was using seatbelts like that at that time. So yeah. Anyway, I think it just got a little bit dimmer in here. That light turned off, but and these ones turned. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah. So that's one thing. It's, you want it to just keep you in place. You don't want it to rotate your hips, because that's rotating your hips. But the other reason that I do it, I am I'm the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. We talk about clothing and patternings that clothing gets us into. When you do it the way that I do it, right? So it's sitting flat, pulling even, because you've done that half little rotation toward you and placed it into the thing. Now it's pulling on you evenly, because that twisting of your hips, really what that's doing is twisting the clothing that's between your actual hips and the seatbelt. And what it'll do is wear out the right front of your pant leg, right on your hip, and stretch that material out. Even if it's not stretchy material, it will just wear it out. Like I'm wearing 100% cotton corduroy pants right now. They're pretty thick as far as pants go. But still, after driving even just a few times with it pulling on the pants there, then when I stand up and walk through life, now there's more of a gap, and on your undergarments that are underneath, anything that's between your actual body and that seatbelt is just going to stretch that side to now when you're standing or walking or just living life, even sleeping, if you're sleeping in anything that you wore within the car, the vehicle, that right hip will just be different within the pants than the left, and it really, really, really creates a patterning that travels through the rest of the time you wear that item of clothing. It's not just within the vehicle. So, when I pull on this, it just pretty darn evenly pulls me just straight back into the seat. And if you try this within your own seatbelt, if you put it in just as if you pull it straight out and put it in, when you pull on this, it probably rotates you pretty good to the same side that it's attached into. And we don't want that. The human body doesn't want that. We have to be even, or else your core will never be activated. And it should never be deactivated, ever. And so now you're spending the entirety of the time in the vehicle with your core being pulled on and deactivated, sitting, which is already an unnatural position, sitting at this height within a vehicle with your feet out here and your arms. It's just an unnatural thing to do, but we're doing all that we can to make it accommodating for our bodies. So that's with the seatbelt as far as how to put it on. But now, do you see these tails of my shirt? How they're not underneath the seatbelt? When I come into the car, I don't want this to happen. You can see the seatbelt's on top of my shirt. Pull the shirt out and put it on top of the belt. Because if your pants are sitting where they should be, above your hips, now the seatbelt's going to be on your hip bones, which is where it's designed to work, and your pants will be above that. So your pants will still be that nice buffer between this material and your body. And now your shirt, though, is not getting stretched, which will, again, cause a patterning throughout your life, because then the front of your lower part of your shirt will be stretched out, and you'll go through life, and it will, what it can really do actually is alter the position that your shoulder seems to sit in, because the base of the shirt is being pulled. And so now also, I always talk about how tops need to be waisted. Ideally, our tops that we wear don't go past where our hips will hinge, because again, if we're wearing our pants above our hips, then we're still covered up modest, because the clothing up here is going to the hips and the pants are above them. So, okay, there we go. Centered, in place, seatbelts on, nice and safe, and the clothing's not being stretched or altered. Now, when you are sitting with your feet on the pedals of the vehicle that you're driving, tie your shoes evenly. That's one of our 2 prerequisites. It gets mentioned in every single video's intro, unless we forget to. You have to tie your shoes evenly. Now, here's the thing. In driving a vehicle, your right foot is on the gas pedal. And that a lot of times will place you here, okay? Right foot, left foot. Left foot's kind of just dangling, unless you are, when I say dangling, I mean just like loosely sitting there, unless you are driving a manual and you're pressing the clutch. But that right foot is like this, okay? And we want our feet straight. When we're walking, our feet point straight. When we're sitting down, our feet point straight. When you're sleeping, ideally your feet point straight, because your feet are essentially your hips, just as your hands are essentially your shoulders. What they do, the other thing does as well. So the feet need to point straight. And a lot of times within the footwell of vehicles, there's not very much room next to that gas pedal to keep that right foot straight, but do all that you can. Do all that you can. Another thing is, if the seatbelt is being placed on the way that it would just pull straight out and twist your hips to the right, twisting your hips to the right, since the feet are essentially the hips, that's going to put that right foot pointed out. And we do not want that. The body only works as a whole. The body works in line. The body has a center line, the sternum, the spine, and the nose. The body has to keep its core activated always. And we need to be going the direction the car is going with our bodies, even though we're sitting stationary, okay? Now, so that right foot should pivot from the brake to the gas even. So on the gas, you're here. On the brake, you're here. Like, even, rather than so far external on that right foot to get to the gas pedal. Ideally, keep your foot straight, and you can even pick your foot up and move it over, but it's usually kind of pivot on that heel. Now, I spent probably 6 or 7 years, give or take, probably 6 years, just about, driving maybe even 7. Yeah, I've driven a lot of time driving a manual transmission with a clutch, right? And that's crazy. Oh, that's crazy for the body. Now, no matter what, tie your shoes even in everything in life, but holy cow. Because I had my shoes tied unevenly, laced incorrect, just because I didn't know the correct way to lace shoes, and I was driving a manual transmission for so many years, seatbelt twisting my hips, pants sitting on my hips, wearing oversized shirts. I was doing all this stuff for that amount of time, somewhere around 7 years, probably, give or take. Manual transmissions, and that's something that really, 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 really caused some immense imbalances within my body. Now, when you're going to use the clutch and the gas and the brake, right, you have 3 pedals, you got a manual transmission. Try to do all that you can to just focus on what I'm saying within this, keeping your hips even and keeping your feet even at even distances, front to back, and pointed evenly rather than this or this. Pointed evenly, maybe slightly in, but like even, and just even through the body. Shoulders even, hips even, feet even. Now, even if you're just driving a automatic transmission, having your feet at even distances from you is so important, because what will happen so commonly is that left foot will be back like this, kind of supporting you with it on the ground, but then your right one will be just the very heel on the ground, usually angled external and just pressing on the gas. But if your hips are being pulled by that seatbelt, this is kind of the position that would just put you in, rather than if those hips aren't being pulled, then you can keep that left foot at an even distance. Like look at your heels and keep them evenly distanced from like your glutes, right? For example, or your hips. Keep your heels evenly spaced when you're sitting there. Then you can keep your core activated, because you can't keep an active core with your feet at different distances, because your hamstrings are just having different levels of contracting happening to them at that point. And your hamstrings determine what your hips do. Your hips are your core. So, yeah. Keep your heels evenly spaced on the floorboard of the car. Now, and ideally, a lot of times there's what's called a dead pedal for that left foot, to where it can sit on something as if it's on the gas pedal, but it's not, right? If you can keep your left foot at an equal like flexion, right, dorsiflexion versus plantar flexion as the right one, then that's good too, because otherwise, even if the heels are at the same lengths, but one foot is so much more forward or back, really dorsiflexed or plantar flexed, then your calf is a lot shorter or longer on one side versus the other, and then the whole duration of driving, that's the case just in a stationary position. So, cool. The steering wheel. If we're picturing where our shoulders naturally are and just like reaching forward like this, look at this. Look at this height. That's really quite ideal. As if you're just reaching your arms straight forward, there's the wheel. You don't want to be clear down here, because look at my shoulders now. And you don't want to be excessively high, because look at my shoulders now, right? All the muscles going into the workings of the shoulder and stabilizing everything, your upper, mid, and lower traps, your rotator cuff, which is all the muscles that go into that scapula, and just the natural positions of your shoulders to allow expansion of your rib cage, to allow you to just continue to breathe normal as if you were just standing like this. That's where you want to be with your hands on the wheel as far as the height. And you don't want to be trying to reach. You don't want to be excessively into your ranges of motion in like your elbows. You want to be just at a good, comfortable distance to where you're just kind of like reaching your arm out and placing it on the wheel, right? Reaching your arm out and placing it on the wheel. And see how my body's not moving, but my arms can just naturally be just in a good position. That's how you want to be, right? Because even if I'm at like 9 and 3 right here, still pretty well in a normal position. So now, they say to drive at 10 and 2, right? But 10 and 2, 9 and 3, or if you just have one hand on the wheel, I'm not telling you how to drive, and I'm not trying to say one's better or worse within this video necessarily, but the height of the shoulders, ideally no compensation within the body, and there you go, and you're driving, okay? Now, yeah, good stuff. This video is really great, because I've spent so much time driving, and it was very, very, very damaging to my body, and I didn't know it at the time, but now I know what I know about the body and how to just allow it to work. So, and how everything that we do transitions into everything else that we do, because of just training patternings, but also, wearing patternings into clothing that we then wear through other parts of our lives. So, man, we're just about there. Also, when you're looking into the rearview mirror, you don't want it to be, because your sensory system, your visual perception of life, you will be sensing this. You'll be driving and your eyes will notice what's going on here. Even when you're looking at the road, you still are seeing this in your peripheral vision. And if it's like the rearview mirror, right, if it's angled, oh, you can see it, good. If it's angled at an angle that you kind of have to like adjust to get that rear mirror or the rear window of the vehicle right in the center of it, then even though you're looking at the road, you're going to kind of slightly be like moving your head like this, because there's stuff like getting shown through that mirror the whole time you're looking here, even though it's off to your side. And so you're still noticing it, even if you're not looking there. So just keep it at a good position to where your eyes will just not have to like do more work to try to just make sense of what's happening over there. Try to just keep it even with everything, so you can keep that neutral spine and just not have to be like adjusting any part of your body, because that's putting a lot of tension into your neck and is curving your spine and changing your entire body's natural workings, as natural as we can get it within this. But yeah, now if you are driving a manual transmission, you don't want to be reaching, right? Again, look at the shoulders, look at the body, look at the spine at this point. When I'm reaching to get to a gear shift over here versus if I'm driving and I'm like here, look at my shoulders, resting. Now I'm on the wheel and I'm shifting. Okay, here. You don't want to be over here. You'll feel tension all through the neck. You'll feel tension all through the whole body. The body only works as a whole. Any part of it that's altered in any way affects the rest of it, because something else and many things within it have to compensate. So try to just keep everything here, centered, core activated, evenly pulling on you, evenly reaching with the arms, even height at the ways you're looking ahead of you in the mirrors, even height to where you don't have to adjust, to just look to see your surroundings. And here you are driving a vehicle, feet even, and good. Okay? One thing I'm going to mention that is absolutely humongous. We talk about the dreaded collar seam. It's a term that I like coined, if you will, the dreaded collar seam. Within t-shirts, right up here, you'll have a little seam so often. And we call it the dreaded collar seam because it's so damaging to the body. We have, up until today's date, 3 full videos on that seam. And within each of them, I show the modification that I have found to do to that seam to just allow it to let your shoulder seams sit evenly and have even tension slash not ideally no tension, but sit evenly around your neck as far as that collar goes. That little seam is affecting our bodies so much. I mean, the degree is just immense. You can go check out the videos for the dreaded collar seam if you'd like to, so you can see and I discuss really a lot of what it's doing. But especially sitting in a vehicle, this seat belt, that dreaded collar seam is almost always on the left shoulder or the left side of the upper trap, right? And this seat belt is also, at least in a left-hand drive car, right here on the left shoulder. Now, you will almost always see, and I've talked about this within one of the videos at least for the dreaded collar seam, you almost always see this when people are driving. You almost never see this. As far as people, if they're driving with one hand on top of the wheel, it will almost always be their left hand. And part of that is to do with the seatbelt, because if you put your right hand here, the seatbelt might tend to just slip into a position that's kind of strange. But when you put your right hand on top, you're kind of like holding that seatbelt in place. And we shouldn't have to be doing that. But that could be one of the reasons, as far as that is, to a degree, one of the reasons. But also, that dreaded collar seam really plays into the exact same patterning as tying your shoes unevenly does. The way that most right-handed people would be, rather than how we need to, evenly over toward the inside with the shoe tying. So when you're driving, that right foot is already just a little bit external almost always because of the location of the gas pedal and because of the seatbelt rotating the hips. And if you are tying your shoes unevenly toward the right, then that's playing even deeper into the same patterning. And now, if you're sitting like this already, you can't even reach that right arm across your body to get it on top of the wheel. And so people will drive with their left on top, okay? It's a patterning that causes this. Some of the things that are playing into the patterning are the vehicle itself, but even if there wasn't a vehicle, the things in our lives are causing the patterning that wouldn't even allow us to to do this, as far as right hand on top of the wheel, for most all people because of the dreaded collar seam, things within clothing, imbalances, shoe tying, and getting into a vehicle, which I didn't quite cover, and I will. But that dreaded collar seam, it places that left shoulder higher. And so we need to do that dreaded collar seam modification, like I'm saying, with the shoe tying and lacing evenly and the clothing sitting where it does, in everything that we do in our lives, regardless if we're driving a vehicle or not. But it's amplified in this case because now, like I'm saying, clothing's getting stretched by that seatbelt and it's getting worn into a deeper ingrained position that's already sitting on you incorrect, because your back sitting against this seat the entire time you're driving will stretch that shirt, even if it's not a stretchy material, into the position that the shoulder seams are sitting. And they're already going to be sitting incorrect with the dreaded collar seam within your clothing. So do the dreaded collar seam modification and try to focus on being able to reach evenly with your arms, just because you're a human being that has a center line, and we have to be able to reach evenly to stay even, or else our body will be in pain, period, because it only works as a whole. So centered, dreaded collar seam modification done so that left shoulder can drop evenly with the right, and that right trap can actually work. Now you're centered, now your feet are even, core is activated, and here you are, right? So this is what I want to say about getting into a car. When you get into a vehicle, it's common for people to kind of just like slide in, and we can look at these side seams on our pant legs, and we want them to be right on the sides. Like if you follow this side outer seam up your pant leg on both sides, you want it to be right evenly on the outsides of your hips. And what happens so often is when people slide in on a left-hand drive vehicle, they'll slide to the right, twisting their pants underneath them, like I was saying with that dreaded collar seam, affecting the whole rear of your shirt because you're sitting against the seat. Anything that's happening on the front, like the seatbelt twisting your hips to the right, is affecting the rear of your pants as well, because, well, the pants are still just encapsulating your whole body. So now you're wearing / stretching / just using your pants in a position where they're rotated on you, and those seams on the sides are uneven. So what'll happen is usually this left side seam of the pant is actually like more up onto your leg, and the right side of the seam of the pant is actually more like down around your glute almost, because you've slid into the seat and rotated your pants on you, and now you're wearing them into a position where they're going to naturally sit unnaturally, but I mean naturally because they've been worn into that position. They're going to sit on you twisted. Now through your whole life, your hips are potentially being twisted, just standing or sleeping or walking or anything in your life, because of the position they've been worn or stretched into because of sliding into a vehicle without getting in and making sure that they're centered. What I do when I get in a car is I get in and I kind of go like this and just make sure that everything's sitting nice and evenly, and then I'll sit down, right? I'll grab the seatbelt, pull it out, do the little half rotation, put it in, pull my shirt out from where it's going to be pinched underneath it, and there we go. Make sure the feet are even, and you're driving, okay? So the importance of being that particular about it is very important, and that's why we have In The Image Clothing Company. We discuss truth. We discuss the reasons why people are experiencing what they are. And you've got people who are in vehicles for hours a day, almost every day. There's, occupations people are doing when they drive, or people just have to make commutes to go places, or whatever the reason is. You need to be able to just allow it to accommodate to the best that we can for our bodies that only do what they do. So when you do, like I was saying, this kind of like adjustment type thing to get your pants to sit even and your shirt and things, make sure when you do that, your feet are even when you're like stepping or lifting off the seat. Because if you're doing that with your feet uneven, then you're not really adjusting into an evenness, because at your feet, everything is changing from there up. So keep your feet nice and even, and then adjust, make sure that everything is in line. Seams are on the sides of you, down your shirts, down your pants, and you're centered in the seat, and there we go. That's how driving affects body mechanics, and it really, really, really does. I felt like I kind of almost ruined clothing to a point where I almost couldn't do anything about it when I first started understanding, within the past year, maybe a little bit over a year, when I first started understanding what clothing is doing to the body, and that it really is clothing that's causing these imbalances and these chronic patternings within human beings. And then I founded In The Image Clothing Company because of that. When I was first starting to figure out how to get things to be centered, and our shoelacing and tying technique, and the things that I was understanding, the dreaded collar seam, the zipper modifications and drawstrings and everything, when I first started learning about all this, just through personal experience, I would be getting into the vehicle that I was driving at the time, and I noticed every time I got out, it felt like my core couldn't stay activated afterward. And what it was is the seatbelt. So that's when I learned that you can do that little half rotation toward you. It does not alter the seatbelt's functionality at all. In fact, like I said, it does actually make it more even of a pull against you to secure you into the seat even better. So, okay, there we go. This is a video that, well, like ideally all of the main side of our company's videos are, it's a forever video, a video that will live on forever, affects every single human being who sits into a vehicle and wears clothing. It will apply to human beings forever. We do not change. Our bodies continue to just operate as a whole, and they only operate the way that they do. And we just need to be aware of how it feels really to stay centered, how it feels to keep that core constantly, always as it would naturally be until altered, activated. And so doing that through everything that we do in our lives, these videos will live on forever. So this is something that I'm so grateful to be able to do. And I'm also so glad that I don't care about it being like the high production value, lighting and all this and everything. It's about the information. It's about the truth that's within our videos. So, yes, it is the 30th of December, 2024. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. We have three sides to us. We have this, our main company side of things, where we discuss the anatomy of the human body. We discuss clothing and what it is doing to the body. And we will have clothing available made out of 100% natural materials, staying centered, fitting correct, allowing the body to work. If you ever purchase In The Image Clothing Company clothing, please only do so if you plan to try to do all that you can to get it in a size that fits you. If your intention is to purchase In The Image Clothing Company clothing to fit you oversized for fashion reasons, please just do not, in those cases, purchase our clothing. Purchase somebody else's clothing, because our whole company is to allow the body to work. That only is allowed to happen, only ever will happen, if our clothing, to the best of our abilities, fits us correct. So we also have another third of our company, which is In The Image Clothing Company podcast, where we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. That is a place that keeps us centered, keeps us aware of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're allowed to do it. And I love it. Okay, then we also have another third of our company, which is In The Image Clothing Company Music. I am a fingerstyle guitarist, as well as just anything else that I get into when it comes to music. So you can check us out anywhere and everywhere that you can find In The Image Clothing Company. So yeah, be intentional about how you get into the vehicle, the things that you're doing, the ways that your eyes are working, with the mirrors, with the height of what you're looking at. Try to keep everything neutral and centered. The height of your arms here, the seatbelt, don't let it rotate your hips, feet, even distances. Keep things from being pulled on by the seatbelt if you can do that. And there we go, okay? The body only works how it does. It's an amazing machine, but it can't be told what to do. And getting into a vehicle just kind of the way that it is, without being as intentional as I'm showing within this, is essentially telling our bodies what to do. And yeah, that's something that's going to just cause a lifetime of repercussions. And it has, and does, and it's something that we can see looking around at people. Yeah, at least I can see as far as I have the trained eye for these patternings, and it's that's why we are doing all that we can do to really spread truth of what's happening and why people are experiencing what they're experiencing within a body that's just designed to work. I always say there's no reason the body wouldn't work unless there was a reason that it couldn't. And that couldn't could be anything. But if we have the ability to address it, let's do it. Because as much of a tool as these vehicles are, they can be very, very, very damaging to the natural workings of our bodies if we're not very intentional. So, all right. Okay. Thank you. Lots of videos that relate to positions of the body, the neutral wrist, and things within clothing, some modifications that I discussed, and a lot of things that we have information on that you can go find within the Image Clothing Company that will relate to this. Our zipper modification, a video titled How Zippers Affect Body Mechanics, How Drawstrings Affect Body Mechanics, our official shoelacing and tying video, the dreaded collar seam video, any one of them will show you the modification to do. All sorts of videos. Tops should be waisted, how pant cuffs affect body mechanics, how sleeve cuffs affect body mechanics, all things that will affect your body while you are driving a vehicle. We have so many videos on just how to allow the body to work. That is our keyword always, is allow, and we show that. So, yes, check out In the Image Clothing Company, and there you go. Again, I just want to make sure and hit it very clear. I know the effect and I know the repercussions of driving a vehicle within an imbalance. Yeah, I have spent an immense amount of time driving, and we got to do all that we can to just have it accommodate for our bodies. So it's not something that's hard to do, but you just need to know what is needed, because living in a modern 2024, we have to be so intentional just to allow ourselves to function naturally, because we're purchasing clothing that other people have designed that doesn't accommodate for our bodies from the factory. We're driving vehicles that, like I've discussed and shown, don't accommodate for our bodies without us doing all that we can do as individuals. So, yeah. Big things. A lot of gratitude to just be able to know these things and have the understanding of these things. So, yeah. Years of pain, physical pain that I've had to go through as well to understand these things. But it's been great to be able to land on this company. It's been really awesome. So, like I said, my name is Evan Strong. Lots to come from me, and not some kind of look at me and not some kind of expectation to put out there, but I'm going to do all that I can to help people with their physical bodies, because I know how much my body has been changed and transformed since I started to just allow it to work. And I've got a lot of knowledge and understanding on how to let that happen. So, okay, In the Image Clothing Company. Thank you. InTheImageClothingCompany.com, our official domain. Yes, clothing available when that comes. Music, podcast, big stuff. Yeah, this is a video I'm grateful for. This is one of the, like I said, I'm gonna reiterate it. Pretty much every one of our videos is a timeless video, but this one especially is something that is huge. I love this, and I love that it's kind of transitioning a little bit. Just about every one of our videos up until this point has been out in the field, where you've seen our other videos if you have seen them. And the last video that I filmed out there, I said I was feeling it was kind of a transitional time, and I didn't even really know exactly what that was meaning, but yeah, we're going to just continue to do what we need to and give the information in the ways that it needs to be delivered. And this is great to be actually sitting in here to show what I'm discussing rather than just talking about it alone. So anyway, thank you. One last thing that I did not mention, and I just got out and realized that I need to mention this, is when you're stepping out of a vehicle, it's so common for people to just kind of like slide out and stretch out the rear of their left pant leg. You step out of the vehicle and you just kind of slide off the seat, and it'll stretch out the rear of that left pant leg. And that in itself is playing into the exact same patterning as well that we're just talking about always within clothing, and that the vehicle itself is placing you into, because if that left rear pant leg gets stretched out, then that reinforces that your left leg is able to straighten fully. And I'm talking about all the time within In The Image Clothing Company how that right leg is not able to fully lock out. That knee has what's called a screw home mechanism at the very end of it. We have a video titled How Clothing Affects the Knee. And at the very end range of motion, we need to get our legs to be able to fully straighten. And when you're stretching out the left rear of your pant because you're sliding out of the seat as you get out of the car, then that's going to just reinforce that that left leg is able to straighten when it's the one that's already, because of things like tying your shoes and things that are uneven within drawstrings and zippers, and just the positions that we do things in our daily lives. It's the left leg that already has the ability to fully extend, but then this is just further reinforcing that discrepancy. And things like the rear of pants, like jeans, where the right rear of the pants are stitched in front of the left, and so that glute area is smaller. All of these things that we talk about within clothing are already allowing that left leg to straighten. And then now what'll happen is, if that rear part of the pants is stretched out excessively, when you stand and extend your legs, sensory-wise, your legs just go to meet the rear of the pants, and that left one will be stretched more to where, yeah, it's going to further ingrain that pattern that we don't want, just that imbalance within the body. So, because that's just rotating your hips is what it's doing, and changing your feet. That will actually put your right foot out because your left foot excessively straightens. And yeah, a lot of mechanics within the body get altered. So when you get out, I understand people have different physical capabilities and different strength levels, and it's not about that, but doing all that you can to get out without stretching those pants. Just kind of like ease your way out to where you're not just sliding against the seat and stretching your pants. Try to do all you can to keep like the weight off of the pants and just step out of the vehicle. So, because I noticed that as I stepped out, and that's something I've been very intentional about for quite a while to do when I get out, to not stretch the rear of that side of the pants. But yeah, so I just didn't add it when before I cut the video. So yes, okay, all right, thank you.